Just want to remind you guys, this episode is presented by Prize Picks. Download the app today. Use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup.
What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Guys, Cody has been on a rampage lately, going through all of Chris Ballard's draft classes, and he's been posting them on Twitter, trying to get everybody's reactions to, said draft classes. And, we're going to go ahead and react and rank these draft classes now, heading into what will be Chris Ballard's 9th NFL draft as the Indianapolis Colts GM. But make sure to leave the comment in the comment section what you guys think about these drafts and going forward. All right, we'll go ahead and hop into the first one that we have here. We are ranking from worst to best. Cody, what did you and I universally have as the worst Chris Ballard draft class?
Worst draft class, I think unanimously from pretty much what everybody said, is that 2019 draft class, Derek. I mean, just terrible. And it's crazy because following up just an absolute masterclass from 2018, it's just completely the other way in 2019. I'll pull up the picks for 2019 just for reference here, Derek. So the Indianapolis Colts did not have a first-round pick there. Or they did, actually. They traded back in the first round, right? And they selected Rocky Sin out of Temple. Then they went back a couple picks later in the second round. Ben Banigou, Paris Campbell in the second round, Bobby Okereke in the third round. Fourth round, Corey Willis. Fifth round, Marvell Tell. Another fifth-round pick, E.J. Speed. Sixth-round pick, Gary Green. And then 2 seventh-round picks, Jackson Barton and Javon Patterson. So, Derek, when you kind of look at this class overall, really no player that stands out to you that, I mean, obviously there's no player on this roster anymore, but when you kind of look at this, Derek, especially the first 3 picks for different reasons, none of them really panned out the way the Indianapolis Colts had envisioned. Rocky Sin was a solid player, but never really turned into that true number 1 outside corner. Ben Banigou was an outright bust. And then Paris Campbell dealt with the injury bug for a majority of his career with the Indianapolis Colts. And, when his contract was up, he did not re-sign with the Colts. And he's kind of been a little bit everywhere since then, right? So those first 3 picks alone, not great. Bobby Okereke was actually a really good find by Chris Ballard in the third round, but it kind of, when it came down to it, the Colts weren't able to retain him. And now, he's obviously been on the Giants since then. The only other notable guy I would say, Derek, is probably E.J. Speed in the 5th round. But now he's obviously no longer with the team. But he was pretty much a special teams guy up until, I believe it was 2022 or 2023 when he actually got a full-time role with the team. So when you kind of look at this overall, there was really no player that stood out and became potentially like a franchise-type player.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong there, dude. I mean, 2019 left you a lot to be desired. Bobby Okereke, Corey Willis, both guys that were pretty good. Corey ended up retiring early, and Bobby, after his rookie contract was up, went on to another team. Like you said, it took E.J. Speed several years to be able to finally get a job with us. And sure, he turned out to be pretty decent for sure, but, now he's on to another team. And like you said, the first 3 picks, none of them are on your team anymore. Final 3 picks, none of them are on your team anymore. I mean, none of this class is left on your team, Cody. I mean, I know it's 2025, so obviously it's 6 years almost at this point, but none of these guys are left on this team. So, I mean, and some of these guys ain't even in the league anymore. At least half of them aren't even in the league anymore. So it's just, it definitely was a failure of a class. And especially for, it being the next class to, what was widely deemed as, Ballard's best class, which we'll talk about here later. Number 7. So We placed 2024 here, guys, mainly just because we don't really have a ton to go off of right now. 2024, you're mainly looking at only the three starters that you do have are one, it's all two of them are offensive linemen. One's going to start. The other one, we're not sure if he's going to anymore. We know he's serviceable. Latu not quite lived up to the expectations from last year. And obviously, Adonai Mitchell did not live up to the expectations. And then, the last few picks of that draft class as well, none of them really on the team anymore. So, ultimately just a lot of what ifs with that right now.
Yeah, and I think you said it. Like none of these four guys that you're looking at here, Derek. I mean, some of them started a few games, but none of them were full time starters in 2024. And again, I kind of went back and forth. Like, do we grade this class after 1 year? Again, at this point, it was a not really impactful class according to all metrics, right? I think PFF had them ranked as like the 24th most impactful class last year. So just not a ton of immediate impact in year one. Now, can that change? Absolutely. It absolutely can. But as it stands right now, guys, we're just going to keep it here. But let's move on now, Derek, to the number 6 class here. We have the 2023 class. So the reason why I think the 2023 class right now is a little bit ahead of 2024 is because we at least know two guys that are going to be starters next year for the Colts from this class. At least two guys that we're confident about that are going to be long-term pieces here. We have guys who are going to be starters potentially, right? Like Anthony Richardson might be a starter. He's going to be competing for that. And a couple other guys as well in there. Juju Brent's not going to probably be a starter unless he stays healthy, which he hasn't been able to. Josh Downs is your slot receiver. And then really outside of that, Derek, probably the only other guy would be Jalen Jones as your potential number 2 outside corner. So really, when you look at this class overall, there's not a ton to super be excited about outside of a couple of these guys we already know. I mean, the biggest domino will obviously be the quarterback, but especially the first 2 picks, Derek, right now through 2 years, it's been rough, man. It's been rough. They've either been injured or frankly not been very good.
Yeah, I mean, this is a draft class that could very well move itself up in the rankings after a certain point, but and I could even argue this could potentially be over the next one, which we're about to discuss. But yeah, I mean, you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 12 draft picks in this. And yet you don't know, the jury's still out on your number 4 overall pick in Anthony Richardson. Jury's still out on Julius Brent. We think he could still be really good, but he's never stayed healthy enough long enough to know. Josh Downs, like you said, one of only 2 guys that you feel confident will be here to stay for the long term. Blake Freeland, disaster. Out of Adebawari, haven't seen him. Darius Rush got cut before the season even started. And Daniel Scott, who might have almost been the starting safety for us last year, ended up getting hurt again. Will Mallory, we never see him. Evan Hall, we never see him. Titus Leo got cut. And Jake Witt is on the practice squad.
He retired. He retired, didn't he?
He retired. So, I mean, it was a whole lot of nothingness for the fact that you had 12 draft picks and virtually only 2 of these guys for sure are going to be on this team in the long term, and you still don't even know about your number 1 pick in your quarterback in Anthony Richardson. So definitely a puzzling world that we live in for that one. Number 5, we'll go to 2017. Like I said, could potentially make the argument between this one and 2023 switching places. I can understand it. But, I mean, again, this was another draft where Chris Ballard just working his magic, getting 4 guys in the first 4 rounds that, just didn't do anything to impact you at all, which, I mean, honestly could potentially be grounds for putting this group back further. But at least in the 4th round, you did get Marlon Mack, which, he was doing outstanding until you drafted Jonathan Taylor. And then you brought in Grover Stewart as well in that draft. And obviously, Grover Stewart still on this team, still providing very big help. Nate Harrison in the 5th round. He was a really good player for us. I mean, he was a very valuable special teamer and did some cornerback room every once in a while. And Anthony Walker was actually a really good linebacker for you in the time that he was there. And then obviously went on to play for the Cleveland Browns. So, I mean, no doubt, Cody, like the star power at the early part of this draft, not even anywhere to be found. But at least you found some guys that, like, at least 3 or 4 guys that stuck with you for 4+ years at least, and guys that actually, put together some decent seasons.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the thing is like even with like I would say Malik Hooker, like it was more of an injury thing for Malik Hooker, right? I did feel like when he was on the field, he had some nice moments, but it just never translated into long-term success. Quincy Wilson was an outright bust. Zach Banner, an outright bust. Terrell Basham, a bust as well. So, yeah, those other three, I mean, just were all around were not good players at all. But like you said, you were able to find a couple guys in those later rounds that I think kind of helped this class elevate a little bit above a couple other classes. But yeah, overall, not a great start to Chris Ballard's tenure as the Colts GM. And obviously, it was a new coach at that point, or it was still Chuck Pagano at that point. You didn't hire Frank Reich yet. So it was still kind of that old coaching staff, kind of that awkward thing there. Colts were still in a 3-4 at that point. So it was just really weird that first year with the draft. So yeah, just not a great class, kind of underwhelming, but a couple of nice finds there in the later rounds. So I think that propels it a little bit ahead of a couple other ones.
All right, now we start getting into a little bit more of the nitty gritty ones here. This one is definitely interesting, depending on who you ask. So, number 4 will be the 2021 draft class for the Indianapolis Colts. I'm going to pull it up because I don't have it up in front
I
of me.
got you. I got you.
Go ahead.
All right, so first round pick, Kwity Paye, pick 21, edge out of Michigan, still on your roster right now. You did pick up his 5th-year option. I mean, Derek, he hasn't been a bad player. He's been solid, I'll say that. Especially he's been very stout in the run defense. He just hasn't been that, potential pass rusher that you were hoping for, right? So Kwity Paye, I think, was a solid pick. Nothing crazy, nothing wild, nothing terrible. So that was the first one. Dayo Adangbo, you drafted as well, so you double dipped on that defensive line. Dio was a good player for you, Derek, but he kind of was a role player and never really found his place in Gus Bradley's defense and, left to go sign with the Chicago Bears for a lot of money. So I wouldn't say he was a bad player at all. I think he was a very good player that you just couldn't afford to keep. And you continue on, then you didn't have a 3rd-round pick. You got Kylan Granson in that 4th round. Definitely not a great pick there for Chris Ballard. 5th round, Sean Davis. He got cut pretty early, so that was an absolute bust. Sam Ehlinger was your backup, really your 3rd-string guy for a while. And then Mike Strawn never really panned out, but Will Fries was a really nice find in the round 7, Derek, for the Indianapolis Colts there, and developed into a really nice guy. And again, left and got paid elsewhere, but I do think, Derek, that when you look at this draft as a whole, it wasn't terrible for the Colts. While they didn't necessarily find a superstar here, I mean, you could maybe say Will Fries, but they didn't necessarily find a guy long term for them. They still found, if you kind of look at it, 3 guys that you would say are above average players. So all that being said, I mean, you'll take that. Those guys were kind of some glue guys and had some flashes. Each of them had flashes in their first couple seasons here, their rookie deals with the Indianapolis Colts. And so Kwity Paye is the only one that's still on the roster, but there are some of the picks you can't ignore, rounds basically 4 through, pick 7, Mike Strawn. Pretty much all those guys outside of Sam Ehlinger didn't really contribute or were cut pretty early. So yeah, not great in the mid rounds, but the first couple rounds weren't bad. And then Will Fries was also a pretty solid guy there that you drafted and you found him really late.
As we said, guys, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling against thousands of other players across platforms, you're basically picking 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're choosing more or less on those stat projections to be able to watch those winnings roll in. It's very easy. Do you guys want to play along at some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and UFC fighter Sugar Sean O'Malley? Well, if you guys sign up today, you can find the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view the entries of some of the biggest names on the platform and be a part of that as well. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 just like that with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Like a lot of other things, guys, they also offer injury insurance, so your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So if someone exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays live. So it's great bounce back for that one. What I love about the app as well, guys, is it's not just sports like NBA, NHL, football, and tennis, and baseball, and all these other things, but there's also a lot of others that go into it as well. If you like to place entries on video game situations like Call of Duty, CS2, Apex, if that's something that appeals to you, there's a wide variety of sports and video games and everything else that you can place entries on. And I love how expansive it is. Even just looking at the NBA, there's entries you can make with turnovers, with points. You can do combo deals, dunks, field goals attempted, all of these different things. So there's just so many different ways to make money off of these entries. Be sure to download the app today and use the code JUICE to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup.
Yep. All right. Number 3. What did we have, Cody, for the number 3 ranked draft class?
Yeah, so number 3, I had the 2022 draft because when you kind of look at this, Derek, there are 3 guys that I think are really impactful for your roster right now. You have Alec Pierce. You know, he is, I would say, the best deep threat in the NFL, or certainly one of them. I mean, the yards per reception, he led the NFL this year. So that was a great pick there. Jelani Woods is the only one that I would say in the first 3 rounds you could probably call a bust at this point because of the injuries, not because of when he's been on the field, right? When he's on the field, we've seen that he can actually be a pretty big threat, but he's missed back-to-back seasons, and that's just an unfortunate thing. But Bernard Ryman's turned into a franchise left tackle, which is definitely huge. And then Nick Cross has turned into a nice, strong safety for you. So I kind of look at that, Derek, and I say that's a pretty good haul in the first. I guess you didn't have a first round. You didn't have a first round pick. That's the crazy thing. You didn't have a first round pick this year, but you still were able to grab some really good players here in rounds 2 and 3. So I do think this was an overall really good class for the kind of lack of ammo you had compared to years past. So I kind of look at that because I think there also is a factor of how many picks you have versus the impact players you get out of it, right? And when you look at this, the Indianapolis Colts really, let's see, they had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They only had 8 picks in this draft, Derek, and they nailed 3 of them. So, I mean, that's a pretty good hit rate for a draft like this. So, and also not like these premium picks either. I mean, these are second and third round guys that you're taking. And, you know, to have 3 of your 4 second/third round picks pan out, that's a pretty big win for me.
Yeah, absolutely. The final 2 draft classes that have been the best ones for Chris Ballard is we're going to go with the number 2 one, and that is the 2020 draft class for the Indianapolis Colts. The first few picks that you get, Michael Pittman and Jonathan Taylor in the second round, both guys that are still big impact guys on your offense and guys that both got extensions as well. Julian Blackmon, again, not on the team as it stands currently, but has been a pretty good safety for you nonetheless. Good Lord, Jacob Eason in the 4th round. What could have
Hey,
been, right?
Derek, I will call you out real quick. I remember back in the day when we talked about the best draft picks and you put Jacob Eason on there for some reason. You're crazy, dude.
Yeah, well, it is what it is. Anyway, we're gonna move on from that.
Yeah. Anyway.
5th round, you got Danny Pinter, who is still on this team, providing some help on the interior of the offensive line. You drafted Rob Windsor in the 6th round. That didn't really pan out.
No.
Didn't he like retire or something like his first season or
he
something?
Kind of just disappeared. I don't really know what happened.
I don't remember what happened. But you also got Isaiah Rodgers, who, had a massive impact for you before the whole gambling situation happened. Desmond Patman had some success early, but very little.
The one Desmond Patman thing I'll remember is that touchdown catch he had against the Cardinals in the 2021 season. Yep. That's like the only thing I remember about Desmond Patman was that catch.
Pretty much. And then you had Jordan Glasgow, who was a good special teams player for you for a few years before going on to another team. So, all in all, Cody, I mean, you found some value. There's just there was a lot less of there was only 3 of these guys that you had. 3 of your 8 or 9, actually. You had 9 in this draft class, and only 3 of them really didn't have any sort of real impact on your team in some way. So 6 out of 9 is pretty dang good. And let alone like 4/5 of them have made some kind of significant impact on your team over the last 4 years. That's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that is. I mean, to get your, what we would say right now, your number 1 outside receiver and your, number 1 running back and one of the top running backs in the NFL, that's a pretty good haul in the first couple picks there. And then, Julian Blackmon, I do believe, Derek, if Blackmon would have stayed healthy his entire career, I think he would have been one of the better safeties the Colts have had. Like, I think he was so impactful, especially when you saw it his rookie season when he came in. Like, he was so impactful for that team, and he was even super impactful in 2023. And then last year with the injury and now kind of changing schemes, he just might not be a fit here anymore. But I do have a lot of respect for Julian Blackmon. I think he was an underrated safety that maybe we didn't talk about a lot, but I do give him credit. When he was on the field and healthy, he was a really good player for you. And so I think the talent alone, the impact, I think he had at least 2 really good seasons that you would say, like, he was one of the better players at his position at that point. So, yeah, I think he was a good player that we don't talk about enough. So, really, you did a good job of finding some good players in the first 3 rounds. And Danny Pinter's been a solid player for you and has started. So, he's definitely had a good impact for you in round 5. And then I think Isaiah Rodgers, if he did not have the whole gambling thing, he was an ascending corner. I do believe that he would have continued to be a really good player for you. So when you look at it as a whole, Derek, that's right there, 5 guys that have had some sort of impact for your team, as starters of some sort. They've started games for you and they played pretty significant roles. And pretty much all these guys, when they were on the field, they played well. So that's a pretty good haul, all things considered. Yep. Especially because, again, you didn't have a first-round pick.
Yeah, that is also a great point. Anyways, so the number 1 draft class, and I think this goes without saying, and it was the 2018 draft class for the Indianapolis Colts. You started round 1 by picking Quentin Nelson, who is now redeemed as one of the best offensive linemen in the game. Some people, even when he first came into the league, a lot of people saying he might be the best offensive lineman in the league, regardless of the position. That was how impactful he was. You brought in Darius Leonard in the 2nd round. You had 4 second-round picks in this draft class. Darius Leonard, before the injuries, putting up numbers that had him on a potential Hall of Fame career. Then you also had Braden Smith, again, has been the right tackle for us for all these years. So you've gotten 2 offensive linemen that have stuck with you through all these years. Kamoko Toure had some early success, but didn't really sustain it. Tyquan Lewis had a lot of injuries and other things go down, but has been a solid role piece for you. Nyheim Hines in the 4th round was a great running back for you in the passing game while he was here. Darius Fountain, never really got to see much when it came to him. Jordan Wilkins was a great backup running back for you whenever you had injuries. Deion Kane, you didn't really get to see much of Deion Kane, never really panned out. Matthew Adams was a good special teamer for you for many years. And then, of course, to round it out, Zaire Franklin, who is now still here and is the captain of your defense and has set numerous Colts records in tackles. So, I mean, Cody, as we said, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, at least 5 very impactful players on this team, and a couple more guys that have played a significant role for this team for many years. So, this definitely was a home run class from Chris Ballard.
The first 3 picks were absolute slam dunks. Derek, I can make legitimate arguments for all 3 guys that at the peak of their careers, they were the best, if not one of the best players at their position.
Yeah.
I can and nobody talks about Braden Smith like that, but Derek, he was. There was years where I think it was a couple of years where he didn't allow a sack. He was that good. And I still think he's a good player, but he's definitely dealt with some injuries in the last couple of years. But yes, those first 3 picks were absolute home run, hit out of the park. Kamoko Toure, Derek, if you remember all the way back to 2019, before he got injured in that Kansas City game, he was on an absolute tear. If he didn't get injured, I think he breaks out that year. I really do. He was a good player. He just had the injury, unfortunate, huge freak accident that happened with his leg. And I think that just kind of stuck with him the rest of his career and never could get back to form. So that's definitely a bummer. But like you mentioned, Tyquan Lewis, he's never been this superstar, but he's always been a solid player. He's been a good role player the last couple of years for you on that defensive line. Nyheim Hines, one of the best receiving backs for a long time there. The fact the Colts couldn't use him didn't necessarily always indicate that, but he definitely showed that he was one of the best guys out of the backfield. And obviously we know what he did on the return game as well. And then you talk about Zaire Franklin as well, who definitely is a guy that, yeah, he's had some controversy, but Derek, he's been a good special teams guy for years and now a key starter in that defense. So, like you said, you look at all these players in total, that's a huge, huge impact haul there from that 2018 class, no doubt.
Yep, and that is going to end this one, guys. Let us know your thoughts on Chris Ballard's draft classes and how you would rank them. But thank you guys so much again for all the support. Greatly appreciated. And as always, guys, go Colts.